Bottoms up tips and tricks. I got all this line. This is the amount of restriction that we put on a long draw system. The trunk line's right here coming up. It'd be ideal if I could just come down and kind of curve up and drop into it. But with this much line, I'd be doing a lot of squiggles. So I'm going to show the proper technique to do what we call candy caning, where you take the vinyl lines and you take all of them, lay them flat, and then wrap them around the cooling lines. There's just a couple steps to make it so that it's a lot easier to work with and lays flat and has perfect chilling contact. So I'll show you the next step. So I've taken the time to fan them out here and set them up so that they're not crossed, so that you can start to wrap them around the cooling line here. And what I've done with the cooling line is I've attached it to itself most of the length here so that it doesn't get tangled, because this is the core that we're wrapping around. So I'm going to do a few wraps and show how it should lay, and then continue down to consuming all of the length that I'd like to of the restriction here. All right, so I've done 2 wraps around, and you can see how everything is laying flat, nothing is crossing, and then they come up and around the backside here. I have put this little piece of tape, a couple wraps of electrical tape, to hold tight where I've made it to. This can be kind of tiring on your hands because you have to make sure it's laying flat. You kind of reach under and you pull it. You then flip all of the beer lines over the top of the glycol lines here, and then make sure that everything's laying flat, and then you reach up and over, twist it, kind of push up, and you can see how it starts to snug, and then continue that until you use as much of the vinyl up as you'd like. In this case, I have already kind of guessed where the glycol lines are going to get cut. So this big thick stretch of tape here is where the glycol lines, I ran them like this, curved them up, and then wanted to bring them down into the trunk line here. So I have all of this space here to use up this line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to candy cane it to start as tight as I can, and then once I get to where the resultant tail is only like 3 feet long or 4 feet, I will stop doing the candy caning and then go back to the normal vinyl lines just running along the glycol line, which also increase flexibility at the end to make it easier to splice here. All right, so you can see the candy cane section here, or spiraled. As it comes down, I have kept tension on it, take the ends off here. You'll see that I'm getting just a little bit of gap between the line and the glycol line. You don't want any air gaps in your spiral here. So once you have it secured, the next step is you come back with the black tape and you tape it with the spirals, and then work the any excess down, because at the end, if there's loops, you can take this tape off and just stretch it ever so slightly and get them to lay flat. This is all I needed to take up, because here is the segment that is going to splice right here. So the line's going to come down, go up like this, drop back down into there. But this is how you can take up some footage and not have to have as much line running all over behind the bar here. So as I'm spiraling down here, so you're taping it nice and tight, this is how much extra I had. So I've taken some of this tape off. I'm going to remove the rest of it, and then you can spin all this length down here, and then I will need to take the little bands off of this to get it to slide down the glycol line. But this is what you're looking for. You're looking for this nice tight spiral. We have probably about 6 feet of vinyl line in this section, and the section is about 3 feet long maybe, so you're getting about half the distance to keep the restriction where it needs to be, and it's nice and tight, it'll chill well. All right, you can see that I've got this thing candy caned now and kind of curved in the position that I want it to go. So this is the kind of S curve that I'm trying to do. I taped that all the way back, got rid of all the slack that was down here, and then I held the glycol lines in position and kind of curved the beer lines with it, so that it holds its shape. So it kind of holds its own shape. So I'm going to insulate it in this shape, and then I'm going to tape it in this shape, and then when it's on the wall, it'll just kind of sit there instead of having to fight it and try and bend it. All right, so here's it insulated in the curve. As it comes down, I have an extra strip you can kind of see right here held in. And when you make this type of curve, a lot of the times you have to spin the trunk line insulation around it, but it'll lay nice and flat. In this case, I have another strip in there, but everything's nice and tight. And then now I'm going to tape it all the way up to this point. All right, the trunk line isn't strapped up, but you can see that it's sitting in this curve that I wanted it to be in. So next step is I'm going to put it in place, put a strap on it, and then splice in my verticals. We kind of are blocked here by the way they did the soda lines, but I'm going to have the flexible come down and splice in just above where the beer lines come out from the Chase underground. All right, I've got it strapped up there. There's kind of the shape of it. Next step for me, the soda lines are in the way. So what I do is I've got the curve that I'm going for, and then I take the glycol lines or the cooling lines and I attach them first, and I usually put tension on them. So I've got it pulled through right there, giving me enough room to go around it and then insulate and not be totally blocked by this. Now I take the vinyls, set them to the length that the glycol lines have now set for the final connections. All right, so we've got the strap on it up there. It's running down, it's nice and tight, coming straight in, leaving the room to put insulation around it to get it to tape. All right, so the trunk line is S-bend down up here and is completely insulated and installed, nice and neat. There's no pressure on it because that's how it was insulated and taped.